I just wanted to theorize a little bit. So I don't know if you've ever noticed how the character Superman is pretty much talking about the Jesus returned to destroy, or, well, I don't know. It's really hard to say because in his appearance and his ability are like that of Jesus returned, but his actions in the movies, series, cartoons, comic books are like that of the Antichrist, right? Like he appears to be a nice person. Well, if you look close at it, it's a snake inside of a pyramid, upside down. It's not an S inside of a diamond, right? Like, it's very strange, the connection of the snake with him, because if you notice in Egypt, every single pharaoh, like everyone, had a little, like, adorned themselves with a little snake in their forehead, like protruding out of it almost. And I think that's very similar, like almost the same thing. Whatever Superman represents is the snake, right? Like, I've met the snake. I want to say it was an out-of-body experience, but I don't think it was. I think my body actually left. Either way, it was a long time ago. I was 21, and I saw it. I was there. It spoke to me. It said, "Hello, Stephen," right? So like, the snake exists. I think it's what they call the Satan. I'm almost positive. I mean, unless it's literally the creator of all things, and it just happens to be a giant snake, horned reptilian snake in the sun. But I mean, like, why? Why would it make itself that if it could be anything, right? And if we're supposed to be made in its image, I don't think that would really be the creator. So it's probably Satan, right? And it says that it is the serpent, right? So if everyone in Egypt is worshiping the serpent, or I guess you would have to say worshiping the serpent, because in the household, the woman worships the man by having the man in her forehead, and the man worships the Christ by having the Christ in his forehead, and the Christ worships the Most High by having the Most High in his forehead. So then that would mean that if the followers of Christ being the positive end and Satan being the negative end, and the followers of Christ would have Christ in their forehead, right? Or a symbol or whatever, representation of some sort. But the children of Satan, the worshippers of Satan, would have the snake in their forehead. And I think that's what the Egyptian pharaohs were doing by putting the snake on their forehead like that. You know what I'm talking about, that little thing. All of them had it. So if you think about it, they're doing that because they believe the words of God, right? I mean, why else would they do that unless it's just common knowledge back then that that's what you would do? I'm not really sure, but either way, it doesn't matter. I think that I think it's not a coincidence that the creator of Superman made it a snake inside of a pyramid on his chest. I'm not sure the significance of being on the chest. Maybe it's just for aesthetic purposes, right? It being on the clothing instead of on his forehead, because maybe that would seem weird and people would be like, oh, well, that's that right there. But yeah, like it's in a pyramid. So what's the pyramid for? You know what I mean? Like you'd think like, oh, maybe it's for, some people say it's for transferring energy to another realm, you know, and some people say it's a Wi-Fi type system for electricity for the devices of the time, right? Like we would call it magic now, but it's, you know, back then they would call electricity magic, dark magic, right? Well, if you think about it, it kind of is. You know, Satan fell as lightning from heaven, and the Freemasons harnessed that lightning and created all of Satan's devices with it so far. So I mean, you know, whatever. I'm just saying, like, what is the pyramid actually used for then? I mean, it's on Superman's chest, so it has to do with the darkness, the dark side of things, right? The Antichrist. It has to do with that. So when you think about it, like, why are they doing, why would they make such a gigantic structure? And you know, it takes generations to build it. And then the after effect, or what you see now, generations later after it's been decrepit, is that, oh, well, it's just a giant coffin. I don't really think that's necessarily the truth or the full truth. I mean, if you think about the recent what was his name, Prince Philip, that died. Okay, Prince Philip once said that when he dies, he wishes to come back as a virus that would kill off half of humanity. And it's a weird coincidence that he said that, and then now like half of humanity is looking like it might be doomed for some virus or imaginary virus, who knows. I'm just saying, it's weird how he said that, and then coincidentally the Queen of England buried him in a pyramid. And you think about, well, the 7 plagues of Egypt or whatever, the plagues of Egypt are going to come back as one of the vials that God pours out of his wrath, right? So he's pissed off at us, and he unleashes the plagues of Egypt. So what makes the plagues of Egypt, and not just plagues? Well, it probably have to be created in Egypt. So how do you create a plague or a virus? Well, I know after major wars, they got to bury lots of dead bodies. And they usually do it in mass graves. And after that, the villages around the mass graves would get sick. So I think that's your answer. You know, when you bury a cow for a long period of time after it's been dead, you'll create anthrax in the cow, in its organs, right? So it's death. Death breeds disease and miasma, right? So by preserving the death, by preserving the flesh of the dead for as long as possible, that's how you make a plague. The plagues of Egypt, I think. I think those pyramids were specifically made to create the plagues of Egypt of the future. Because they knew that they would eventually excavate all the mummies, and then all that would be released. And I'm sure there's lots of spiritual things involved, and alignments with stars and stuff like that. But I mean, just for the bare basics of it, I think that it is for preserving death, not life, not whatever these people are explaining it to be. I think it's quite literally because they were all black magic practitioners, and they knew that they could use their flesh in the future, right? Like, maybe not them, their spirits, maybe they do still roam, but I mean, their followers, right? The followers of Set, or the followers of whatever it is, the snake. I mean, when you boil it right down to it, it's the snake. It's not the Baphomet, it's the snake. So it has to do with the pyramids in Egypt. And when you think about it, if look, I seen this thing. It was a third phase of Moon, the channel's called on YouTube. I think they're compromised now, but I mean, back when they weren't, they did this episode about the pharaoh Akhenaten and how he was very different from all the other pharaohs, as in he had extra chromosomes, which allowed him to have regenerative capabilities in his flesh. Not only that, he had resistance to radiation. Okay, which then I'm talking about the one that looks like Obama, right? So this dude, like, he did die young, but I mean, he was like the world's greatest speaker at the time. He created a whole new religion and he forced everybody to worship it. And you know, he was quite literally the representation of Satan, like in the flesh back then, I think. Right? Like the snake chose him at the time. He had the snake in the forehead, right? I mean, I don't think anybody could just adorn themselves with a snake on their head. I think that was specifically meant for pharaohs, and if you were caught practicing some sort of magic like that, or hidden worship, or hidden self possession, right? Like trying to allow the spirit into you without anyone else knowing, I think that would be illegal at the time. They would probably execute you, right? Like the pharaoh is the only one chosen to do these things, right? So I'm not really sure how to summarize this. I'm just saying, like, when I think about it, like the real reason behind the pyramids, I don't think they're gateways. I don't think they're energy sources. I think it's quite literally darkness building on darkness, right? Like death breeding death, and then breeding plumes of death over the earth. You know, it's just something to think about.